My nephew Gray, now a teenager, went through a traumatic experience at the age of 8 when his mother and unborn sister passed away due to a placental abruption. Gray witnessed his mother's death while in the car with his parents. Understandably, both Gray and my brother Ken, his father, struggled immensely with the loss. However, Ken's focus on his own grief and healing overshadowed Gray's, leaving the latter's emotional needs unaddressed. About 18 months after his wife's passing, Ken felt ready to date again and met Vera, his second wife. Their relationship progressed rapidly, and they married just 5 months later. Vera, in her attempts to bond with Gray, assured him repeatedly that she would be the best mother figure he could have, even joking that she might outdo his biological mother. Despite her efforts, Gray never warmed up to Vera, feeling as though Ken was trying to replace his mother and rushing into things. Concerned about Gray's emotional well-being, I urged Ken to seek professional help for Gray and to consider therapy for himself as well. However, my parents brushed off my concerns, believing that Gray would eventually come around given time. Tragically, about a year ago, Ken and Vera's newborn son passed away due to a fatal abnormality. Vera, unaware of the condition in her family, required a C-section due to complications, and she could no longer conceive children. Surprisingly, Gray did not display much grief over the loss. He confided in me that he never felt a strong connection to his half-brother and did not experience the expected sorrow. Throughout this ordeal, Vera turned to Gray for support, hoping he would console her and fulfill the role of a caring son, a role he had never embraced. Recently, there was a significant incident involving Vera and Gray that unfolded during a family gathering, leaving tensions running high. Vera, evidently seeking solace and support, confronted Gray in front of our parents and relatives, expressing her disappointment in his perceived lack of empathy and care. She articulated her feelings of abandonment and accused Gray of neglecting his familial duties. In response, Gray delivered a blunt and cutting retort, denying any familial connection to Vera and rejecting any responsibility for providing her with emotional support. His words were met with shock and disapproval from those present, including Ken, who quickly intervened to express his outrage at Gray's apparent callousness. Ken's impassioned defense of Vera and condemnation of Gray's behavior escalated the situation further. He labeled Gray's actions as sick and branded him a monster for his refusal to offer Vera the comfort she so desperately sought during a time of immense personal loss. However, amidst the escalating tension, I felt compelled to step in, urging Ken to reconsider his harsh judgment of Gray. I emphasized the complexities of Gray and Vera's relationship, acknowledging the deep-seated issues and past traumas that colored their interactions. I reminded everyone present that expecting Gray to fulfill the role of Vera's emotional support was unfair and unrealistic given the complicated history between them. Despite my efforts to mediate and diffuse the situation, opinions remained divided among our family members. While some sided with Ken, viewing Gray's actions as inexcusable, others, including Gray himself, appreciated my intervention and understanding of his perspective. Reflecting on the incident afterward, I couldn't help but feel a sense of empathy for Gray. His tumultuous past, including the loss of his mother at a young age, undoubtedly shaped his emotional responses and capacity for empathy. It was evident that Gray deserved compassion and understanding, rather than condemnation, as he grappled with his own internal struggles and complexities within his familial relationships. Your nephew is in dire need of professional help and a supportive family environment. It's evident that your brother and his wife have failed to provide the necessary emotional support for him, especially considering the trauma he experienced at such a young age. As he navigates through adolescence and approaches adulthood, it's crucial for him to have a solid support system and access to therapy to address his unresolved grief and trauma. Your role as a caring and understanding family member is essential in this situation. While others may overlook or downplay your nephew's emotional needs, your empathy and willingness to advocate for him can make a significant difference in his life. Your brother and his wife's negligence may lead to long-term consequences for your nephew's mental health and well-being, but your presence and support offer him a glimmer of hope in an otherwise challenging situation. On the other hand, your struggle with your mother-in-law's intrusive behavior during your pregnancy highlights the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for yourself. It's admirable that you're assertive in expressing your discomfort with her presence during such an intimate and vulnerable moment. Your insistence on maintaining autonomy over your birthing experience, despite your mother-in-law's pressure, showcases your strength and determination to prioritize your own well-being and comfort. Furthermore, your clever approach to addressing your husband's wavering stance on the matter demonstrates your resourcefulness and commitment to upholding your boundaries. By proposing a compromise that highlights the absurdity of your mother-in-law's request while also emphasizing the importance of mutual respect and consent, you assert your agency in making decisions that directly affect your body and emotional state. In essence, both situations underscore the significance of empathy, assertiveness, and boundary setting in maintaining healthy relationships and promoting individual well-being. He dismissed my concerns as ridiculous, but I stood my ground, emphasizing that none of my brothers would allow our father to witness such a private and invasive medical procedure. It was a matter of feeling included and respected. Eventually, he acknowledged my perspective, although his mother was less understanding, expressing displeasure at my choice of comparison. In an attempt to mend the situation, I offered to amend my analogy, suggesting instead the idea of me witnessing her undergo a Brazilian wax. However, her reaction to my proposal was silence for a week, indicating her lingering disapproval. While I understand that witnessing the birth of a baby might be her dream scenario, it's simply not something I'm comfortable with. However, despite my reservations, am I the one in the wrong here? Your response was perfectly reasonable, and you are certainly not the one at fault here. Don't let her pressure you into something you're not comfortable with, especially during a time as significant and potentially stressful as the lead up to your due date. It's unfortunate that some people seem to view childbirth as a public spectacle rather than the intimate and personal experience it is meant to be. Your sister-in-law's approach of keeping her labor private is commendable, and perhaps something you could consider for yourself to avoid unnecessary drama and stress. Additionally, it's crucial to assert your boundaries and preferences with your birthing center or hospital, ensuring that your wishes regarding who is present during the birth are respected. Your husband should support and respect your decisions in this matter, rather than attempting to dictate who can be present. Regarding the Christmas gathering, it's essential that your husband's needs are taken into consideration, especially given his wheelchair use. Accessibility should always be a priority, and if previous years have been accommodating, there's no reason why this year should be any different. They've decided to host Christmas at a mountain ski resort, which presents significant accessibility challenges for my husband. We expressed our concerns and explained that we would be doing our own thing for Christmas this year. Their response was to suggest that we send the kids while we do our own thing. We firmly reiterated that our kids wouldn't be attending either if our entire family couldn't be together. Now, they're upset, accusing us of depriving the kids of holiday joy and implying that we're neglectful parents. Can you believe it? Am I the one at fault here for insisting that my kids won't attend Christmas if we can't all be there together? Absolutely not. It's outrageous that they've effectively excluded your husband from Christmas festivities and then proposed splitting up your family for the holiday. Do they have an issue with your husband? It's hard to fathom such ignorance and insensitivity towards him and your family as a whole. The fact that they're even suggesting sending a young toddler over is beyond belief. While sending the other children alone would already be upsetting, sending a toddler is simply unacceptable. These early years are precious, and every Christmas spent together as a family holds significant value. You shouldn't have to sacrifice spending the holiday with your kids just because your family didn't consider your husband's accessibility needs. Perhaps you could offer to visit with the kids another time, but it's unreasonable for your parents to assume they have a right to dictate your holiday plans in this manner. This situation is incredibly distressing, especially for your husband, who may internalize these hurtful dynamics. Make sure to offer him plenty of support and reassurance. He shouldn't bear the burden of other people's thoughtlessness and insensitivity. I wish you a warm and joyful family Christmas. Now, let's rewind to the beginning of this story, back to the 4th of July 2022. I was spending the weekend with my parents at the lake, along with my son, mom, and dad. On our way back to the resort from the lake, with my dad driving, I noticed my mom texting someone on her phone with the screen uncovered, making sure my dad couldn't see. It struck me as odd, but I didn't dwell on it until I caught a glimpse of the intimate conversation she was having. Naturally, I was furious, but I didn't want to create a scene in front of my son, so I waited until the weekend was over to confirm my suspicions. Throughout the weekend, I discreetly tried to read her messages whenever I could, and each time, my suspicions grew stronger. Finally, I confronted her via text, with my dad in the room. Predictably, she denied everything. Unsatisfied with her response, I insisted that she come clean to dad. Despite my request, she didn't tell him before we left on Sunday to head home. My dad, who worked nights, relied on my mom to assist with my son since my work schedule prevented me from taking him to school in the mornings. Despite my anger after the 4th of July incident, I had no choice but to continue relying on her help for my son's sake. I urged her to come clean to dad and resolve the situation, but instead, she kicked him out and deceived him. This left my dad feeling blindsided and abandoned. Despite our rocky relationship, he turned to me for support during this time of crisis. I was there for him through his loneliness and even during a scare with a potential heart attack. Meanwhile, my mom was nowhere to be found, except for incessant arguments with dad over trivial matters. Let's fast forward to this summer. When my mother asked to take my son for a weekend getaway to an amusement park and nearby resort, I graciously accepted, viewing it as a well-deserved break for both of us. Little did I know that what seemed like a harmless excursion would unravel into a string of miscommunication and strained relationships. As my son returned from the weekend adventure, brimming with excitement about his time with Nana, he casually mentioned her friend who had joined them. Curiosity piqued. I took it upon myself to investigate, scouring through social media profiles until I stumbled upon the identity of this mysterious companion. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My mother hadn't seen fit to inform me about this additional guest. A surge of frustration and resentment washed over me. How could my own mother omit such a crucial detail? The betrayal stung, leaving me grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. In a moment of righteous indignation, I made the impulsive decision to return her house key, a symbolic gesture of my discontent. As life continued its unpredictable course, a silver lining emerged in the form of a career opportunity. In August, I was presented with a golden ticket, a chance to transition from the noisy confines of the steel shop to the dynamic realm of the engineering department. This newfound flexibility allowed me to align my schedule with my son's, affording me the precious gift of time to drop him off at school in the morning and eagerly await his return in the afternoon. Yet, amidst this professional triumph, a cloud of unresolved tension lingered between my mother and me. With each passing day, the chasm widened, fueled by her glaring silence and my simmering resentment. When she dared to request to pick up my son for his birthday, I was seized by a sense of righteous indignation. How could she expect such a privilege when she hadn't even mustered the decency to apologize for her earlier transgression? I'm sorry, but let's address this with maturity. The situation at hand involves your parents' relationship, and while it's understandable to feel concerned, it's important to respect their privacy. Snooping through your mother's texts is an invasion of her privacy, regardless of the circumstances. Additionally, using your son as a pawn in their relationship issues is not appropriate. It's unfair to him and places unnecessary emotional strain on a child who should be shielded from such adult matters. However, let's delve deeper into the backstory. Last summer, a significant breach of trust occurred when your mother took your child to an amusement park without informing you that her boyfriend would be there. This incident understandably shook your trust in her judgment, especially when it comes to your child's well-being. While you may not have been aware of her boyfriend's presence before, this deliberate omission crossed a boundary. Given this history, it's reasonable for you to express concerns about your mother's behavior and the potential impact on your child. Your priority is your son's welfare, and setting boundaries to protect him from potentially harmful situations is commendable. Trust is earned, and your mother's actions have understandably eroded that trust. Moving forward, it's essential to have open and honest communication with your mother about your expectations regarding your child's care and well-being. While tensions may arise, maintaining clear boundaries is crucial for the well-being of your family. On another note, my wife, 32, and I, 33, have been married for 5 years. Despite moving to another state, we still have ties to Florida, including a rental property we own. Hubert, an elderly retiree, rents the property from us, and we've had a positive experience with him as a tenant. Hubert, being without family or a support network, relies on us, and we are committed to ensuring his well-being. He's capable of living independently, but he's quite frail. Whenever my wife and I travel back to Florida, which is quite frequent, we usually check in on him, bring him meals, and attend to any needs around the house. My mother-in-law used to visit our Florida house often when we lived there. Recently, she's been dropping hints about retiring soon and wanting to move into the house, renting from us. However, both my wife and I believe this is a bad idea. While she claims she'll pay rent, we doubt it'll last long, especially considering her plans to live there rent-free once Hubert is no longer able to rent due to his frailty. Last week, my mother-in-law briefly saw Hubert when we stopped by the house for me to fix something for him. During the car ride back, she commented that Hubert is looking even frailer and it's too risky for him to live independently. Her insinuations didn't sit well with me, so I bluntly told her to mind her own business and that Hubert can make his own decisions about where he lives. Her response was to invoke God and scold me for speaking disrespectfully to an elder, to which I retorted that God wouldn't approve of her counting on an elderly person's demise. This exchange left her fuming, and she hasn't spoken to me since. Thankfully, my wife supports me in this matter and has stood up to her mother on multiple occasions in the past. However, we both anticipate further tension over this issue. It's clear that I need to make it unequivocally clear to my mother-in-law that we have no intention of renting to her, regardless of Hubert's circumstances. This might provoke her anger, but addressing it now could potentially save us from more drama down the road. Renting to family always invites complications, and it's a scenario we'd prefer to avoid altogether.